Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering in Play. We are back in Space Engineers and also back in the Enginerds world. So we're continuing on with the base building concept here, which is really just to say a rather compact, I want to say, processing station. So not a whole lot of fluff or filler here, just processing. So speaking of taking snapshots as I go along, so let's review a couple of things that I have done. I added on 3 blast furnaces down here, arc furnaces, and got them plumbed in, so those are all complete. One of the things that this world has was the now it was originally from Paycast, but I see it is in somebody else's workshop now, so I don't know if that's because they changed names or because they've transferred it to somebody else to maintain. I'm really not sure. Now, I've never used these before. I've only used the other version, which was the specific cargo teleporter. And I rather like the cargo teleporter better because it's a single unit that then uses a cargo container that's already on the ship. Already on the vessel. So in this case, I'm not sure. I'm admittedly okay. So this is engineer OCD for you. If you write a technical manual, always write it to the idiot. Okay, go into the fine-tooth comb level of detail. Explain every nuance because you are talking to an idiot, okay? And the idiot on the other end may be a PhD level engineer, okay? So this is the other reason why you write it for the idiot. Because if that guy with the PhD in engineering can't understand what you wrote, it's probably not his fault, okay? So, not to slam them, but the documentation sucks. Okay, so be very clear, and I know that sounds really hostile, and I've done that too, but, you know, be very specific in what you mean and what it takes. What is this device? If you're talking about a particular device, make sure that your tech manual talks about that device as it is named. Okay, so that's the other problem here, is trying to understand the terminology in the tech manual does not match the name of the device that you paste in the world. So there's a lot of these problems that are in fact why I've never used this one before. This particular mod actually had a lot more capability because you could not only transmit cargo, but you could transmit power, which was also nice. So, you know, having an ability to transmit power as well as cargo is obviously a really neat thing. The problem, of course, is getting it set up and getting it set up correctly and making sure everything is right. So, having said all that, blah, 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 bitch, whine, complain. There are 2 elements. You see this one that the reticle is on now, which is, as far as I can tell, a specialized cargo container. Now I haven't looked at that in the inventory just because I've been building, but so it looks to be a specialized cargo container, and you program this container, which is really to say you put a name as part of the construct to make it communicate with the other end. This guy is called the translocator, which as far as I can tell is not directional, but I really don't know. So between these 2 guys, so this guy has the name of, so this is the miner. Now, as far as I can tell, this guy has the name of the container to which it is transmitting. and the name of this translocator. Okay, as far as I can tell. So this guy you paste in the world and you name it something unique. In this case, it's what is it called? Translocator? Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look. That was not the look I wanted. So this is the, as far as I can tell, so this is the, so translocator pad minor, and the one on the base is translocator pad base. Okay, so those are the only differences. Tether container minor and tether container base. And in this case, it is transmitting to, so the T designator there, tether container base. Okay, so its counterpart on the other side. And this is, again, as far as I can tell by reading the directions, this is the NFC, whatever the NFC is, on this grid. Okay, so you name according to what's on this grid. So this is, I'm guessing that the translocator is actually the device that is linked with the other translocator to make it work. Now, I don't know if this is true, but it appears as though with the translocator you could actually have multiple tether containers, so cargo translocators. So the tether container is what I'm presuming is the cargo translocator. So the names as you paste them in are different, but I'm rolling with it. So hopefully this will all work. The only thing I'm waiting on actually is gravity generators. So again, this thing apparently is what sets up the link to other translocators, and then this guy is actually what does everything and also acts as a cargo container. So actually I'm gonna look in here because I'm really curious, and sure enough, this does act like a medium cargo container, which actually is kind of cool because now there's some container, which means I can put even more cargo into this thing, which is awesome. I like that idea. So here's the hang up. So obviously a translocator, we would need to have its counterpart on the ship, or on the station in this case, which is this guy here, and then the counterpart cargo container, which is this guy here. If we zoom in here, hello, you can see we're waiting on gravity generator components. Now, gravity generator components have been scarce, few, far between because of this guy here. This guy took a bazillion of those. So each of the upgrade modules required 5 gravity generators, and the Nanite Control Factory itself took 350, and those are extremely pricey. I always thought it was the superconductor conduits that were the pricey part, but no, I am entirely mistaken. It is the gravity generators, which require, let me see, iron, gold, nickel, and cobalt in vast quantities to make each one of those. So that has been a little bit of a problem. So finally, last night, well, early this morning, as the case may be, I finished that guy, and then today when I came back, I took what had been produced and actually finished the upgrade modules. So that dried me out again. So my intention at this point, which is where I kind of stopped, was I want to put in a manual. Let me go ahead and charge here. So another good news, I put this on yesterday, and I didn't really mention this, the cryo chamber. Being as I've only run within my own environment, I'm the host, which is to say my client is running on its own server. So if you think about things in terms of client server, which is really how Space Engineers works, so the engine underneath is working kind of in a server fashion, and then the client on the front end is actually communicating with that. Even if you're running solo on your own machine, it's still doing that. So if you're running your own environment, then it's actually running that in the background. It loads the world that you want into the quote-unquote server, and boom, you're up and running, and your client does what your client does. In this case, I don't have a server running in the background because I'm on somebody else's world, so that is the server. So in this case, my client running on the front end is communicating with a server somewhere, and then this world is actually on that server, which is one of the reasons why if I have some connection problems of any kind, then strange and wonky things happen. And I am out of iron again. Okay, which the entire reason why I wanted to get this cargo tether thing working was so I could basically mine continuously. The other goal, two goals, three goals. First goal is to get the cargo tether system working. Okay, so that's the number one goal. That is entirely dependent upon gravity generators, which are pricey. Number two, the manual assembler. Okay, ISI can deal with a manual assembler, so I want an assembler that's entirely focused on that's entirely focused on building gravity generators at this point. I need those, and ISI is shifting stuff around to make its quota. And once the quota is done, that's no biggie, but until that point. So I want a manual assembler. And project number 3 is, I've already started, this is a large grid projector. And I have let me go ahead and bring this up. I have a 49 drill miner here, which we've seen in some of my other videos, that's more of a large scale miner. It's entirely vanilla, and it will be vanilla other than I want to put the cargo tether system onto it. So that's the only thing that's going to be different in all of this. So eventually, when we have indeed more gravity generators, then that will happen. Having said all that, I am entirely at the mercy of gravity generators as far as project number 1. Anyway, what I discovered, and I'm sorry I babbled on in a different direction and then come back to this, but one of the things that I've never experienced is the fact that if you disconnect when you are not the host, you lose everything in your inventory. There are some things that stay the same, like the color scheme, for example. That sort of thing remain, which is nice, but you lose, your toolbar actually remains as well, but everything that was in your inventory goes away. Then if you respawn, then it's like you died and came back and you have whatever tools according to the world, or nothing. In the interest of, I got tired of losing everything every time I logged out, I discovered, oh shit, I'm in somebody else's world. I am not the host, I'm just a player, which means I need a cryo chamber. So the cryo chamber in this case, it's actually hooked into this guy to supply the critical gases while you're asleep. Whoops, energy. But the nice thing about the cryopod is it maintains you as you were, including your inventory. So now when I log out of this world, I go into the cryo chamber and boom, my problem was solved. So that was one of the other projects that that came of well, just that learning. All right, so we're gonna move on to project number 2, and I need steel plate. Comp, which is my components container, and we'll grab steel plate, and we'll probably need other things. I've already put my assembler here. Let me go down so we can see. So there's the big port, which is going to connect onto that conveyor up there. I've already turned it right side up relative to this particular station, and we're going to paste that in. I don't know what all I need. Steel plate, motors, displays, motor, display, computer, construction component, display, computer. All right. Back into here. So, steel plate, motors, construction component, small steel tube, and computers, right? All right, and I've been having issues. Displays with the Nanite Control Factory not building, and there is construction, upgrades there, but they're not really doing what I'm expecting them to do. All right, so computers, displays, I'm going to just steal those because I think that's what I'm missing. Construction components. All right, I think that's what I was missing here. Computers and displays. Yep. Okay, so one of the things I want to do, I'm gonna go into Izzy, and there was I think it's exclamation point manual. Yep. To use an assembler manually. So I'm going to add that to the name of this assembler, which is indeed assembler number 5. But I'm gonna put that in there as a manual. Gonna go back into Izzy, recompile Izzy, just to make sure that that one is understood. Okay, so now back into K, into production. I now have this guy here. I'm gonna delete that. So gravity generator, we see silver, gold, cobalt, and iron. So for every one of those is 1 and 2/3 of a silver ingot, 3 1/3 for a gold ingot, a 70 3 1/3 cobalt ingot and 200 iron. Okay, so for one gravity generator. So needless to say, really, really pricey when it comes to making each one of these, which means I need a lot of silver, a lot of gold, a shit ton of cobalt, and a metric shit ton of iron. We're going to go ahead and queue up 200 of those. Now, you can see we pulled in a certain amount of silver and a certain amount of gold. It says I need 333 of all of these guys. We're pulling in that material as it makes it, as it's available. But ultimately, we're going to need 14,000 cobalt, almost 15,000 cobalt, and 40,000 iron. So obviously, I'm going to need to get an awful lot of that stuff. All right, so there's Project 2 is well underway, but in the end, I need more iron. So mining. What I have not done, because I really don't know how these things function yet. I don't know if I turn. I think I'm going to leave that one alone because it's a cargo container. But this guy, I think I can turn this off and it will stop transmitting. And I hope that's the case. So what I want to do is put this on the board. We have a forward camera here. We have an aft camera here. What I'm going to do is change the menu a little bit. Okay, all my cameras fell off the world here, so let me go out. Okay, cameras. So all of the cameras we're going to put back on the toolbar, which is fine. Okay. So the ventral view camera I don't really need. So what I'm going to do here instead is, so we've got the aft view, we're using the snot out of that one. We're going to go ahead and move this one over. We're going to call that view. Then we're going to grab this guy and put it here and toggle it on and off. Now, right now it's on, so we're going to go ahead and toggle that off. I don't know. Again, I have not used these, so I don't know if this is the way they actually work or not. But I'm going to presume that if you turn off that NFC pad, then everything stops working. And I hope that's the case. Otherwise, I'm going to not. Okay, so turn on the floods and turn on the antenna. And off we go for iron mining. I've been kind of just working straight ahead here because there's a lot of iron here. No. So, and I don't really mind if I accidentally take in some silicon. That's not really. I do have a lot of silicon, but you know, in the end, iron is just one of those things that you really do need an incredible amount of, and it's not that it's extremely abundant. So you really don't have to look very far. So one of the reasons I kind of picked this particular asteroid to call home base, it was very large, it was hollow, and there isn't meteors in this world, but if there were, it would have given me somewhat of shelter from the outside world, which was nice. So it had an abundance of iron, which is always a good thing. It had cobalt, which it is 50-50. You do use quite a bit of cobalt, nickel, are two things that you actually do use quite a bit of. And then it had ice. So it was really kind of about the ice that made this particular thing very appealing, because having ice when you're first starting out is always a good thing, because it removes kind of that first large scale hurdle of, okay, I what am I going to do to get to this point? You know, you need, and I've lectured you all on this before, but you need those basic things. The very first thing you need is you gotta have air. So, you know, power and air, you can kind of look at those as independent aspects, but they're really not. Which one you happen to do first is really kind of a matter of convenience almost. So I don't want to say the other interesting aspect here is I don't want to leave these little slivers here. Or these pointy things. Drill off for a moment. No, that was not a drill off. Inventory. So here's one of the things that I have. I don't know why it was doing this originally, but originally the drills were pushing materials into like the cockpit, the connector, and all that sort of thing. Oops. And I don't know why it stopped doing that. So what I want to do, so we have drill 1 and 2, which is actually got quite a bit. It has indeed pushed into the connector. I'm going to push materials into the cockpit and more importantly into the container. So this is almost full. Huh. Oh, there we go. Okay. I was totally confusing myself trying to figure out, okay, why is that not? So that was just to more evenly split these things. So the tether container in this case is not full, and I wanted to fill it. So all right, so the cargo status in this case is just the drills. So that's kind of one of those interesting things that, in fact, maybe that's something. LCD. So that's my starboard side panel, custom data. So this is just drills. So what I want to go ahead and do here is just note drills. The other thing, and this is, I don't think this works. We're going to find out shortly here. That's either going to disappear. Yep, it disappeared. So the oops, custom data, not edit text. The problem here is that this group or that device actually exists on the station as well. So what I could do is rename this to miner, and then I would have to get to the H2O2 generator, and this is now miner, which then will so the problem here was that whenever I would connect up, then the gas generator quantity then changes to something pretty dramatic, because it's actually looking at the gas generators on the station, which are named similarly. So hopefully that will not be the case. So you notice the cargo status drills did update, which is grand. So wow, this is something I did not realize. So let me tilt slightly because I want to see what this is. A mining hauler. Didn't actually realize that cargo stuff was on. All right, so having babbled and made some changes here, then we're going to go ahead and continue mining. So we really just want to file that little guy down. Just kind of seeing where these different aspects are. So we're gonna, I know this is kind of, creative drilling and all, but trying to clean up, which is really to say to get things to the point where I am not creating a dangerous safety of flight area where I have these mysterious mystery voxels that are just sitting out in the middle of nowhere that you can't see, and then you run your miner into it and destroy your miner. Okay, thankfully that mining transport appears to be moving away from me, which I'm glad for. So as the goal here was iron rather than silicon, I'm kind of skirting the edge here, dealing with this extra silicon. There, now we're back into the iron. Pt07 almost full. so drills off. That's the rear camera, which now has a little bit of a different view because I now have the cargo container there. Alright, so I probably need to figure out where the heck I think I'm gonna have to put like floodlights on this just so I can see the connector. Oops, wrong way. Have as accurate of a perspective here on this thing either. Whoa. I guess that could explain why this wasn't working. Which will connect on, and if Izzy is doing, oh wait, 5, we want to turn off the floodlights, off the antenna, and then lock. Now inventory. Inventory is a strange thing that for whatever reason the stuff that's in the cockpit, so everything came out of the container, and everything comes out of the drills and the connector. But for some reason, it stays in the cockpit. So not sure why that is. Maybe that's just a feature. It may be something that's built into Izzy. For example, bottles. So spare bottles are a great thing. Spare ammo, spare weapon, great things to throw into a cockpit. Because you climb into it and you have access to that inventory. Even if the cockpit is not connected to anything, you still have that inventory space, and you can get to it just by sitting in the seat. So, points to ponder. All right, so here's what we're going to do. So ingot and ore, and we're just going to drag those two there. Okay, that way they can work with that appropriately. Okay, so I'm hooked on here. Actually, you know what I want to do is I'm going to unlock. I'm going to T. So because this is unlocked, I can now do a blueprint of it, which is a Control B. So this is this version here, so I'm going to delete that one. Yes. Go in here and details rename and get rid of the one, and then close. So this is the most updated version of this particular one, which is really what I want in my blueprints. T, in this case, climbed me into the cockpit. In this case, I can see the gas generator as it is on this vessel. I'm going to go ahead and lock up, and if that does not change, then we know we've solved our problem. So lock. So give that a few seconds. The connector you see changed to lock, and the ice quantity in the generator remained the same. So that's actually a good thing. T to get out of this. So it is now locked onto the station here. We're going to go ahead and do a blueprint of the station, just for sake of having done so. Alright, I guess at this point it's the matter of seeing where we're at on our materials. So we have taken in quite a quantity of iron ore. We are plentiful in semi-plentiful in everything. So we have gold, we have silver, which is to say we have ore of all of those things. Gravel is the only thing that we are a little bit shy on, which is not that big of a deal until I'm making reactor components, at which time stone obviously is very abundant, so not a big deal. So we have 300 and some change kilotons of ore, or kiloliters, I guess that is. Or actually that's quantity, sorry. So we have 307.2 or 306.9 thousand units, whatever those units happen to be. I'm presuming it is a kilogram. Having said that, let's see what our assembler is doing. So we'll go into K, production, and so we're a little bit ways off here. Silver ingot. So we need 316. So we have made 10, apparently, because I queued up 200. So let's do a search. Let's see if we can find those guys. So in this case, oh, I see there's 17. So I'm going to steal a bunch, and at the same time I'm going to go ahead and put those away and steal a bunch of those. So I can hold 16 in my inventory because of everything else I have here. I'm finishing the transmogrifier here. Sorry for those of you who don't know that reference. That is from Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes, the transmogrifier. Alright, so that is complete. So the one thing I need to do here is just to make sure that is translocator pad base, which looks like it is. Current mass 0. The next thing we need to do is, so we need 15 gravity generators here. I think I took 4 here, so I should have, okay, so I need 2 more to get this to where it needs to be. So 2 is much less daunting than 15. Inventory, we'll go into components, and we just kind of watch 3. All right. So, if all goes well, and we're going to check our configuration here. So we have the translocator, which is the same as this one. Uh-oh. We'll change that to base. So base and minor, base and minor. Tether container minor, and translocator pad base. So this matches the one that's on the grid, which is this one. And then this is receiving from tether container minor. Okay, so just to verify, base, and then translocator pad minor. Okay, so as far as my interpretation of the this is on and this is on. Yes. Okay, so my interpretation is that these systems should now be functional. I think. So what I want to do here, okay, inventory, I want to drop these guys off because I'm done with them. Comp, and we're going to put those with these. So these are slowly being created as they go. I'm going to leave that one alone. That one will continue to generate as it goes. Alright, doing a few things down here. I'm going to go ahead and put alright, so that was project number 1. Well, we'll test that in a moment. Well, as I say, no better time than the present, right? T, to jump in here, we want to break away floodlights on, antenna on, and in this case we're going to turn the transmogrifier on. Okay, so if all goes as anticipated, then technically this will transmit all of this material back to the base. Alright, so the bad news is I don't see anything actually functioning. But the good news is there may be the reason for that may be more of a function of all right, drills off, inventory. So this guy is doing nothing. Now I don't know if that's because it's doing nothing or because it really doesn't have any functional methodology of pulling material into it. Oops. So here's what I want to do. I want to drag stuff. So we've got connector, and it's not letting me do that. But it is letting me do that. Tether container base. Transmit tether container base. Kilowatts. Container. So there is a drain all, but it just says current mass 0. So huh. So NFC pads, which is what I'm using. So the choices are to use the tether, which are as far as I can tell, a line of sight type of an application. So I don't know that to be true, but I think it is. Or the NFC plate and a cargo translocator. So that's the combination that I'm using. So tether uplinks, I just skipped that part, NFC pads. Place a cargo translocator, which I'm presuming is the actual cargo container, and NFC plates on each ship station and give them a unique name. choose one, step 3. To send, add greater than T colon blah 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 name to the name of the cargo translocator. Change name 1 to the name you gave the target cargo container of a connected grid. So I don't know if this is maybe this should be transmit from me. So let's try it. Transmit from, and of course I'll have to change this on the other end. Minor. Let's go ahead and turn that off and back on. No change there, but maybe not unexpected. I may regret that. I don't know what the limit as far as so this base oops. And we'll turn that off and drain all. Well, maybe not. Alright, and then we'll head back over here. Climb back in and see. No, clearly no change. So looking at power here, I'm not having a power problem. I've clearly got a lot of power to play with. So this is why you always write tech manuals to the idiot, because to send, add, transmit name to the name of the cargo translocator. Which one? You have a pair. Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the one connected on this grid or the one on the other grid? So you have to be clear when you write a tech manual. Write to the idiot. Explain every minute detail. Change name 1, so name 1 is the example here. In fact, sorry, let me, I know I'm bitching, but let me just put this on the screen so everyone can see it just like me. Alright. Instructions for cargo tethering. So choose either the 500 meter tether, the 1500 meter tether, or the NFC plate, 10 meter, not sure what that means, and add a cargo translocator. So I'm presuming these work in a pair. Again, not entirely clear. Tether uplinks. So I skipped that one because I'm not using those. NFC pads. Place a cargo translocator. There's no such thing in inventory. Having said that, let me go over here. All right. Let me jump out of here. I'm gonna grab these things. Translocator, cargo translocator. But look at the name of it: tether source cargo container. Tether source cargo container is what the name of this device is. The icon says wireless cargo translocator. Understood. But the name of the device in the game is tether source cargo container. Tether source cargo container. Okay, so again, when you write a tech manual, I'm talking about the transmogrifier. Don't call it a transducer if you're talking about the transmogrifier. If your documentation is talking about the transmogrifier, call it the transmogrifier. Okay, so this is my problem with tech writers. Get your shit together, folks. Okay? Write something that makes sense to the idiot. You are well aware of the creation that you built. Understood. Just because you're aware does not mean that you're not an idiot when you're trying to describe that thing to someone else. So, if you call it a transmogrifier, write your documentation calling it a transmogrifier. If you're going to call it something else, call it whatever the hell you want. Just make sure your documentation matches what you called it. This is, I want to say common sense engineering, but obviously engineers don't have a lot of common sense. So, if you're going to call it the wireless cargo translocator, then call it the wireless cargo translocator, not the tether source cargo container, because you leave ambiguity into your directions. So, having demonstrated this, pull that off, go back into my documentation here, the cargo translocator. So, again, I'm presuming they mean the cargo tether cargo container and the NFC plates. NFC plates. Remember that term, NFC plate. Let's go back into Space Engineers. NFC translocator pad. Is it a pad or is it a plate? Is it a plate or is it a pad? So, at least in this case, my hat's off because the name on the icon matches the name of the device in the game, which is really kind of cool. So, my hat's off there. But this one, not so much. If you call it a cargo translocator, you can't call it a tether source cargo container. You just call it what it is. If you want to change the name, fine and dandy. Change the name, but change your documentation to match the name you just called it. And preferably make sure the device matches the icon name because, anyway. Okay, so NFC pad versus NFC plate. Okay, give them a unique name, which in this case we have. We didn't call them Jordan, Clark, or Robert. We called them base and minor. Step one, to add in this case T name to the name of the cargo translocator. On which grid? What grid are you talking about? Presumably, the grid that is transmitting would have transmit. Change name 1 to the name you gave the target. So I'm presuming the other grid, but it says the cargo container of a connected grid. This is not a connected grid. This is an independent grid. Again, the documentation here is ambiguous at best to the name of the cargo translocator. You're talking about two different ones, so which one is the? is it this one or is it the other one? Gave it to the cargo. So in this case, and I just noticed let's just ignore the number 2 for a moment. Point the uplinks at each other. Okay, that's fine and dandy. To send to the cargo translocator. Cargo translocator. Change name 1. Change name 1 to the name. So this was a cut and paste. So this may apply to these guys, but not necessarily apply to these guys. So this is, again, when you're writing technical information, makes no sense. So without having a world where you could actually look at any of this stuff and see how it's set up, let's see if I was hoping there would be like a world somewhere. Well, is there? Updates and bug reports. There's a tutorial video. Let's look. Tesla system utilities. Well, I think laser tethers, NFC. So I'm gonna look at this, but I'm gonna do this on a different. I don't want to take the time to do this here, but now that I know these are here, we'll figure this out at some point. I really want to make this work. In the meantime, mining. Okay. Let's go ahead and turn that off because it's not working anyway. Based on how the other system works. Oh, whoops. Sorry. This is minor. This one is base. Because it makes sense. You're transmitting to the thing on the other end. That's what I think. That's how I think this should work. Now, having said all this, maybe this is indeed how it's supposed to work, and these guys just aren't working. That is entirely possible. So we have a tether container and a translocator pad miner. In this case, we have this thing, which I'm presuming is how you set up. So you point it to transmit to that guy on the other end, and then the name of the connected translocator pad. So I'm assuming that's what it was supposed to be. Now, having said that, let me run back over here for just a moment. Go into this thing. We are base, and this is, I believe, from miner and translocator pad base, which is that guy. So I believe, given the instructions that I have received, I believe that to be correct. Now, having said that, it's not working, which is A, Space Engineers, B, it just doesn't work. Alright, so let's go back to inventory. We're going to so that's already full, which is good. But let's go into our drills, and we're going to fill that up. And I don't know why you can't pull material out of the connector. That is really, to me, that's really strange. Alright, drills on. Bounce. Back up. Again. The other thing I have not tried is RDev's mining script, automatic miner. I wouldn't think be that hard to get working here. So I'm just taking, a little piece at a time here. So having an ability to transmit cargo would be advantageous for a lot of reasons. I think that's a reasonably obvious statement. Because then you could effectively mine continuously and not really have to stop at any point. You basically go to where it is that you need to go, mine, and mine to your heart's content. You just keep transmitting everything across. And I do that in my own worlds. Now I use Paycas's. It's a single block mod, and it's very similar as far as I can tell in functionality. But you use your own cargo container, and you name that cargo container whatever you want. It doesn't matter. and with the designator of that particular cargo container, you put that name into the actual transmitter or the actual cargo teleporter, it's called, and oh, too far. And then it does what it does. Oh, you know what? I'm already full on drills. So, whoa, whoa. On the level plane here as well. Alright, and then back, I think I actually need to go down slightly. Alright, so floodlights off, antenna off. We already turned the wireless cargo thingy off, and locked. So it says all ore summary on the ship here is gone. All right, so obviously I'm going to need to do some investigatory. I need to get myself learned with how things are going. Can't move, couldn't move. One of the things that I have noticed, and this is a Space Engineers bug. So flight seat control station. So those are our two choices here. Interior plate. Inventory. Interior plate. I'm presuming computer display. Take a spattering here. 6. So the idea here. Display. Whoa. Computers, motors, construction components. Interior plate, bulletproof glass. All right. Okay, so 0 T to sit into this seat, and a Y which will shut down everything. And Y to turn everything back on. Not sure why that freaked out like it did. So here's one of the things I've noticed is that a conveyor system just stops working. And there's no real explanation as to why it stops working. It just does. So in this case, by turning it off and then back on, conveyor connection owner, conveyor not owned. Well, control panel. Me. And share with my faction. So according to this, I own everything, but conveyor connection, check conveyor connection and owner faction. Check code OK. Remember exit and small connector. Connector. I don't know where there is a small connector. From small reactor. I have to think Issy's just fucked up. Which may just be the world is fucked up. Don't know. It does look like we are doing things. Alright, so just because. So let's go ahead and go in and we're going to cancel this. At the same time, we're going to do inventory and we're going to move all this out because this is no need to have that there. So ingot and ore, and we're just going to put this into that container. That way it can be used elsewhere. So this thing is going to sit completely idle off. It is just manual. And we'll let that do what it does. Do another blueprint just because. All right, so one of the things that I really want, I would like a storage place for this little miner, and I'm not sure exactly where is a good place for that. Mostly because, um, do we put it underneath? Do we put it over? I've kind of created this flat plane down here, which is, I think, a good thing. So I'm either thinking like there, which would let this thing come straight down onto this and more or less store there, which wouldn't be a bad thing. Or we actually increase the plane a little bit. I don't know what a good place for this miner would be. I can't come up here because this guy takes up all of that. The idea here is that I need this guy out of the way. So I don't want to lose the miner, of course. I still want it to be a part of the world here, but I need some place to store it out of the way. So maybe a connector here is not a bad idea, or a connector there. Will it fit? No, I think this here, putting a connector in here would actually, I think, be a better idea. So let's drop that off, so the control console here did absolutely nothing to change anything. So we'll flip that over. And we'll put that there. Steel plate, computer, and small steel tube. Steel plate, computer, and small steel tube. Alright, and we're going to verify, so this is owned by me, it is shared with my faction. In this case, we're going to call this connector small miner. We're going to add the arc furnaces. We're going to turn those off on the toolbar, and then add those into refineries, because they are. They really are refineries. So save refineries off. Let's see what else we have here. Connector small miner, and then connector, I guess we'll call this large miner. So this is a control station, singular, not plural. And then this is gas generators. Save. We're going to pull those off the toolbar, leave them on the inventory because we are working there. Okay, and this is going to go into assemblers because it is an assembler. So save. The assemblers do not need to be on the toolbar, but they do have an inventory, and then off. Control station is a minor is a miscellaneous. That's what I'm trying to say. Miscellaneous. Save. Off on the terminal. So we have connectors. I don't have a category for connectors, but we can certainly add that. And in this case, we have a tethering system. So what I want to do is say system cargo teleport, and do a save. We're gonna leave that on the toolbar because once I figure out how that system actually functions. So we actually have two projectors. So this is in this case the small grid projector, and this is the large grid projector. The rotor actually is associated with that. It's never going to move, so we can actually turn that off on the toolbar. We're going to throw that into the miscellaneous and then turn that off as well. So we have the two projectors, which 6 of one, half does the other. When you're working with these, sometimes it's convenient to have them there. So Izzy in this case does belong to the computer and display, but I put that back on, as in I showed it on the terminal because I was getting tired of having to hunt for it. So in this case, I can just show that it's on the toolbar, so I could do some things with it. But we'll go ahead and, for right now, turn that off on the toolbar and off on the terminal. And it does belong to this group, as you saw. So connectors, we've only got the two connectors. So we're going to go ahead and save that as connectors. We leave it on the toolbar so we can address it if we need to. They do have an inventory, and off. Okay, so we've done a little bit of cleanup. We still have the projectors here in this case. There is no antenna. The other system required an antenna. So this may or may not be an issue. All right, so at some point, something that I need to do. Well, I have this little miner. I have to move it anyway. All right, so unlock forward. 7 and in this case, it's the up and over. And so what I want to do here is, let me get a little bit relative here. Go over just a little bit more. I want to move forward in front of the a little bit more. There we go. And And then we're going to drop down just a hair. Relative to the cargo containers. And then we're going to slide in. So the last thing I want to do is damage the cargo containers. So I want to make sure I'm far enough away from the cargo containers to not damage anything. But I want to make a hole back here. I just want to get rid of stuff. I think I'll shift outboard just a little and make another big hole. So I spoke about an antenna. In fact, that completely spawned what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to cut a hole back here so I can put in an antenna. Now there is an azimuth antenna that's a single block antenna, which I really do like, and I actually used to use those on quite a few of my builds. But the azimuth global mod, the big mod, had a couple issues here and there, and I kind of, what is going on here? Why am I running into stuff? So I stopped using it by virtue of I didn't want to let me turn my drills off, and then I'll use the view so I can see. Get out of here. Okay, so now that I've cut some gigantic holes here. So the idea back here, and this is going to be a little bit tricky, is I want to create a connection point coming across, and at the same time I want to stick an antenna on top of it. Now the problem with antennas, let me just run into that. The antennas are huge and gangly, and they take up a lot of space. So in the end, it's like, okay, where do we put it? Which is one of the reasons why I kind of like the azimuth antenna. So the idea was I'm going to have to eventually cut that loose, and understanding exactly how and where to do that in the grand scheme of things is really what the challenge has become. So I really want an anchor point, but yet I need to the anchor point needs to be in a place that's realistic, and these batteries were original, so these were from the get-go. But they're kind of in the way from the perspective of I would like to be able to do a couple things, and the various elements are in the way. So the question here is what to do in terms of connecting, having having the space to do what I need to do, but at the same time kind of I want to say hollowing out. So let me come back in. So we're just basically on a planar, or as close as we can to a planar line, taking some of this material out, making some room, and I think we're going to go ahead and put an antenna back here, and then I want to retest the little gizmo here. To see if it works. Kind of cutting a swath here, and I'm trying to maintain somewhat of a level. So if this turns out to be an antenna issue, and part of me wanted to just say the hell with it and put an azimuth antenna on, even if it's a temporary antenna, there's the other part of me that's the OCD part that says it's not really that I'm trying to use more and more vanilla. It's that the real challenge in this game is where you are almost forced to use. Whoa, that's not the button I wanted. Whoa, I ended up going in just bizarre directions here. I don't even know how I managed to do that. So I went completely off the plane. I mean completely off the plane. So I had intended to just cut out around behind this thing and ended up I have no idea why it wouldn't let me roll that way. Alright, so I have no idea how I ended up this far off the beaten trail here. Having said that, so the goal is to put an antenna back here. So this is 3 high, this is 2 high, which means something on the bottom would be the only thing I could do. In the interim, I'm going to put an azimuth antenna, I think, right here. So, antenna, and this is the azimuth single antenna. This is the large antenna, which is a 2. So we're going to do this. We're going to cheat for right now and put this in. Whoa. Okay, large steel tube and radio communication components. All right, so there are no build states. That's what totally threw me off. It was just like, wait a minute, that's weird. Okay, large steel tube. Components. So we'll drop all these off. We need large steel tube. I need 40 of those, and radio components. Oh darn! I can't hold all those. Okay. Oh darn. Large steel tube, so I need 15 more radio components. So inventory, component, and we need 15 of those. Okay, 100%. So this is KTC, let's look it up, temp base. Okay. So control panel, KTC, temp base. We're going to go ahead and rock and roll all the way out. Now that I have an antenna, I don't think. Let me turn this off. Program. Let's use spare 2. So spare 2 is called hack defense. And we're gonna browse hacker drone protection script. Okay. Check code. Okay. Remember and exit. Hack defense, and you might spell it with an S. Don't know. Defense? Defense, yeah. Okay, sorry about that. We go, let's turn that off again. Antenna, the programmable block is hack defense. And that should be it. So let's check this one more time. Program hack defense is me and share with faction. Alright, me and share with faction. Turn that off. Okay, so what have we done here? We have created an antenna. We've turned the antenna on. Let's go ahead and look at power and see if power requirements change dramatically. We have 30 megawatts available and we're using about 6.8 megawatts. So we do have about a 20 megawatt buffer, which is quite a bit. But a Space Engineers watt is not a real watt. So after all, you have devices like a tank that uses 1 kilowatt. 1 kilowatt is a lot. Okay, so let's go back to our theory here. So K to get into our grid cargo teleport. We're going to turn this on the terminal because I really want to see what it's doing. So current mass, in this case we can see it here, tether container miner from, and then the NFC is translocator pad base. So I'm presuming this is how this works. So that's on. I've got an antenna on. So I don't know if this is using antennas or not, but it's worth a try. So in this case, I have this thing turned off. Let's go ahead and check our own stuff. So we have tether container base. So I'm transmitting to, I hope, to the base. And the NFC is the translocator pad miner, which is located right here. So it's this guy here. Dampener's on. Which is what I want, and we'll turn this guy on. Don't know. I don't see any movement of anything, so the antenna here is on. Yeah, so I'm clearly going to have to figure out how this stuff works. We are very close to limits. So I'm going to go in for one more slight pass, which will, I believe, fill us up. Actually, you know what? I'm at 65 and I have a 67. In fact, let's. So we still have a cockpit that we can fill up. So this is now nearly full. So inventory. So drill. Let's just stuff that all the way full, and we'll go ahead and put everything in the cockpit there, and then we have this aft connector that's already full. So we added a bit of space. Yes, we did. Almost 10K of space. So let's go forward a bit more. So I want to stay on plane with the station here. Yeah. we can always use more ice anyway. So we're going to go down a little bit. I obviously don't want to damage the cargo containers here by getting too close. So we'll go again, stay on plane. The nice thing about small ship drills, and I've found this to not be quite as true so the downside here is that I've got ion thrusters that are beating down onto those staying on plane here. All right, so backing off a little bit. I'm at capacity. So at this point is the figuring out. So let me. I'm slightly off plane here. Now, as strange as this sounds, those things there, but okay, I truly have no idea why. So this is not touching anything. But I'm not moving. So once I'm in motion, everything is good. Alright, floods off, antenna off, locked. Alright, then jump out of here, turn that off. I think that pulled in everything. Not the most ideal place for the miner, I admit. And what I want to do is come in sideways into here and do this, and then I'll actually hit one more along this back wall and do that. So I've got a little bit of work to do yet, just by way of, got to make this work. What is the plan for this behemoth? The plan for this guy is ultimately to make it mobile. So right now it's a station, but I want to put thrusters on it, which means I need to put a drive section onto it. So ultimately, I want to make this, and this could either be a production barge, which there wouldn't be anything wrong with that, obviously stuck in space, and then create like a tug or something for it, which also wouldn't be a bad idea. That would be kind of fun. Okay, so project number 1 has failed because I have no clue how to make those work. And I will address that off screen. Assembler, which was project number 2, is complete and worked out well. So basically everything, I believe, and let's go ahead and look at that. I believe everything on this particular station. So let's turn this off, which means I'm showing all the hidden blocks, and there should now be nothing. Battery 1 and 2 is actually on the miner. All of the orange is on the miner. The connector is on the miner. But we have nothing in red. This is the goal, is to see absolutely nothing in red. Small grid projector. So nothing in red, which means everything is complete. So if that theory holds true, this guy will be green, which it is. Okay, so that means we've got nothing going on here, which is exactly what we wanted. All right, so having said that, we talked about this projector. And let me go ahead and just go over here to this side. So what are we going to do with this projector? So here's our projector large grid. We're gonna, it's on now. We're actually going to load in the vanilla 49 drill miner, which is a 7x7 grid, which you can see there. Pretty large scale behemoth monster there. I have no idea if we will be able to construct that in here. We might not be able to, but we're gonna try. And okay, one of the other things with projectors is keep projection. Okay, the critical time is when you're using a projector on your own grid, which is to say a self-repairing mechanism. You have to have this on. Here's what happens, and I don't know if this was designed intended. I have no idea. I don't think it was. To me, it's a bug, but maybe that's the way they intended, because it's been this way for a year, more than a year. So you build your grid, you get it exactly the way you want, you put a projector on it, you load the blueprint into the projector, and it basically is projecting itself, right? So when you have damaged blocks, you all of a sudden have a projector there that's showing you the block that was damaged or displaced, and now you can re-weld it. Here's the problem. You get it all lined up, perfect, and the projector clears itself. Poof, gone. So you have to go in, go back into blueprints, reload the blueprint into it, and because it's already aligned to what it was supposed to be when it was perfect, it dumps itself again. So it's this reciprocal delete the blueprint, delete the blueprint, delete the blueprint. So what happens when you're aligning, keep the projection, and then it will all work. Okay, one of the other things I really need to do here is turn off the nanite factory. The reason for that is the nanite factory will build this thing, and I do not want it to build. So hopefully it didn't. I hope it didn't. That would have been horrible. I should have turned that off in advance. Okay, projector. Here's another problem with the projector. Used to be you could program all these in to console, but if you program them in now, they automatically go to 180, and then they don't move. So pitch, roll, and yaw are not really pitch, roll, and yaw. You basically have to figure out what you want. So for those of you who are aware, pitch, roll, and yaw, let's talk helicopters, because helicopters are obviously 3D. I can go up and down. I can turn sideways. So pitch. Pitch is my nose, up or down. So if we're talking the y-axis here, so the x-axis goes out in both directions, left and right, from you. So you're sitting in the pilot seat. So your x-axis is going out from you on a straight line, left and right. Okay, so pitch is an orbit around the x-axis. Okay, so nose up, nose down. Roll is the y-axis, which is forward backwards from you. Okay, so roll is orbit left to right, around, clockwise, counterclockwise in this case, around. Yaw is the z-axis. Okay, so in other words, turning my nose to the left or turning my nose to the right on a flat plane. So understanding what pitch, yaw, and roll are, these don't work that way. So you just have to play with them and figure out what it is. Pitch isn't really pitch because it's relative to something. Nobody knows what it is, and the something seems to change. So pitch, roll, and yaw, just ignore those terms. They mean absolutely nothing. This is the first one there, called pitch, is a random axis. Yaw is a random axis. Roll is a random axis. You just have to play with them and figure it out. So I start on pitch. What I want to do is change this 90 degrees and get this thing sideways. So I got to figure out, and we did. We got it sideways, exactly how I wanted it sideways, in fact. Okay, the next thing I need to do, so now that I have the orientation of this thing where I want it, I need to move, so my orientation is correct, so spinning around my various axes. Now I just need to move it on those axes, right or left, relative to the axis. Back out here to the large grid. Um, in this case, horizontal vertical offset is also relative. I want to go down, I believe. Forward backwards is also relative. We're going to see what this is. Normally you'll only change one of these at a time. Okay, so I moved that up, which I didn't want, but I did move it out, which I did want. Back to our projector. Let's go ahead and zero. Let's go ahead and zero that one, and then play with one axis at a time. Okay, so what does that mean? So in this case, you notice the forward backwards actually moved it out. So it's forward backward relative, in this case, to the projector. Okay, so I moved it forward, so the projection moved away. So I think that's going to be my connection point. And let me look over here to be sure that's actually a logical thing, because I don't want to build this thing in, which it's going to. So I'm going to have to cut, I'm going to have to chop some stuff off here to make this work. Or I spin it around the other way, which is also possible. The other thing I can do is drop this down, which actually is a good idea. So let us move this back 3 blocks closer, and then move it down. So that should be our vertical. So large grid, let's move this 3 blocks closer. So I want to make this a 2 vertical. Okay. So vertical height, we're going to go minus 5, and we'll see what that does. Okay, so clearly a minus is not really a minus, so we want to go the other direction. So large grid, that's not a minus 5, we're going to go a plus 5. Yes. Okay, now I can't do that because the well, we could go down 1. So the antenna and the connector here is in the way. So we're going to have to go out 1 more, which is fine. And then I also want to go, I think we'll go down 2. Yeah. So we're going to go down 2 more. Actually, yeah, I can go down 2 more. And I'll explain why I can do that. So large grid, this is already at a vertical offset of 5. So we're going to go down 2 more, and this needs to increase to a 3. And let's have a look. Okay, so I went out 1 more block, which is great. And I went down 2 blocks, which is also great. And you probably don't think so, but the reason why. Okay, so here's what I wanted to see. I now have clearance up top, and I have clearance below. Okay. You know, the only strange thing here is, for whatever reason, this is flipped. So we do need to, we have the, I think it was the pitch was fine. The pitch in this case was yaw. So let's go back here to the large grid, and so pitch, again, we're just going to do this at random to see. And that rotated around the other axes, so we want to put that back. So that goes back to 0 and roll. We'll see what that does. All right. So the height is correct, but now we have, okay, so the orientation, we have indeed fixed the orientation. It is upright. The forward offset, I don't know what happened there. So I'm gonna increase that. I can see it moving out on the side. So let me change that to 10 and get a relative bearing. All right. So here's the cockpit of this. This is an ion thrustered miner, as you can tell. Let's bring that in. So we have the 10, which, oh, yeah, here's the 10, which we're going to go ahead and change to a 7 and see where that is. Okay, too close. We need to go out 2. So large grid, we changed our 7, which will become a 9. All right, which is a little better. Now we could be one less. Here's what I want to make sure is that this row of ion thrusters, when they fire, miss the bottom of the ship, which is why I went down 2. So I really could come back in 1 block. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that I've kind of seen where everything is. So large grid, we changed this one to a 9, so let's change that to an 8, and that should be about where we want to be. Yes, it is. Okay, so the only aspect that might be a little funky is this right here. So one of the things that we want to do, so we can go over the top and discover this is not anywhere close. We can go back here and discover it's not anywhere close, and we can go down here and discover this is not anywhere close. So if we started building this thing, we should be all right in all planes at this point, which is a good thing. Okay, so having said that, we are going to once again do a blueprint save for the base. And then we're going to turn on our nanite control factory. And it's doing nothing. Says it's green, but not doing anything. So just to look here, okay. Projection construction. Oh, never mind. I know why. It is a me thing, in fact. So, let us take steel plates, inventory, comp. We're going to put those back in inventory, and we're going to take steel plates. G. We're going to drop the antenna off and that off. We're going to grab light armor blocks. And the first thing we're going to do is build an armor block off the front of the projector. Why is that? Because a projector, I wish it didn't work this way, but I kind of understand why it does. I wish you could project out in the middle of the universe and then build onto it from nowhere. But for whatever reason, and there may have been a game engine mechanics issue there. The long and the short of it is can't do that. So you have to give it a connection point. And here's what we're going to do. So we're going to build a block off the front of the projector. And then we're going to build another block off the front. Now watch this drill right here. Watch this drill. Click. You notice that drill just changed a bit more solid. The reason why it changed to be more solid is because we now have a connection point. Okay, now this is flashing green, and I'm going to look and see what the flashing green means, because it should mean something. There's Engineers somewhere over here, automatic LCDs too. Pulsing green. The factory has some potential targets. Can't convert them to actual targets due to a problem. Another factory is targeting this block, for example. Alright, so there isn't another factory anywhere, so this kind of makes me wonder what the hell. So this thing has been effectively useless. Construction targets. Possible projection targets. 1. Maximum targets reached. Status: invalid targets, active nanites. Missing components, construction. Missing components to start projected blocks. Projection. Oh. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do here. One is the toggle for this guy on and off. I'm going to put this one right in the middle, which is ISI, which is a toggle that one on and off. Then we have a large grid. We'll go ahead and let's put that one on and off, and this one on and off. So this one right now is off. We have our small ship miner there. The ore detector is on the miner, so we don't want that doing anything. So in this case, yeah, I personally, I think ISI is taking materials. Yeah, so when I turn ISI off, and then the nanite control factory can actually move the materials around as it needs, takes the materials as it needs it, it actually starts building, as you can see. Yeah, so in this case, you know, we may run out of materials here, but so ISI in this case was fighting with the nanite control factory, which is ultimately then the nanite control factory can't do what it needs to do. So let me put that in different terms. The nanite control factory queues the materials it needs to build a particular block. So it takes those materials from wherever they happen to be stored, and then uses them in the streams. Now, one of the things that may be, in fact, let's go ahead and do a little research here. There is a way to make inventories ignored by ISI. So ISI block edit. A keyword in inventory has to contain to be skipped by the sorting. No items will be taken out is locked. So we're going to try a theory here. So we'll go ahead and check code again. Okay. We're going to go ahead and turn ISI on. No, take that back. Factory, nanite control factory, and we're going to say locked. So the name of this thing is irrelevant to the control factory itself, but this may actually mean something to ISI. So in this case, we're going to go back into ISI and turn ISI on, and we'll see if that actually makes a difference. So theoretically, the nanite control factory should continue to run just fine. Yep, it is. It's continuing to build. So the good news is, in this case, the ISI is doing what ISI does, which is to steal everything and put it where it wants it, and that sort of thing, which is fine. But what it was doing was stealing. So the nanite control factory has an inventory. It pulls the components in it needs to build whatever block that it's working on into its own inventory, and then uses the nanites to build. And in this case, what was happening is it would queue these materials. Then ISI would see, oh, I've got this stuff here, and take it to put it back. So basically stealing inventory that this device just put into its inventory. So it was basically ISI fighting with the factory for this inventory. So once I locked the inventory, then ISI ignores it, and it can pull in as it needs, and as you can see, it's functional now. So this is a good thing. So nice things working. All right, so iron, definitely don't have, we've got iron ore sitting there, but oop, bounce. So I don't know what's going on with ISI. ISI is clearly having an issue. So check conveyor connection and owner faction. All of the items, everything on this grid belongs to me, including ISI. And clearly we're not having trouble shifting stuff around because things are moving. So but it can't move stuff in. So this may be an issue with this container that is actually functioning like a sorter. We can move material out, but we can't move material in. So yeah. All right, so out. Let's have a look. The cargo translocator. So we have arrows going out from the center. Okay, so I'm going to presume for a moment that this is in and this is out. Nothing in the description that actually says that, but I'm going to presume that to be true. So this is the out versus the in. So I may have this backwards. So I guess what that means is I'm going to have to grind this down. Oh, darn it. Darn it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just stop. Off. All right. Damn it. Damn it. Oh, why the hell all those grinders are in there? Alright, now T on. I have no idea what all those grinders were. Okay, my fault, I should have checked the inventory before before I ground it down. Okay, so the nice thing is that the Nanite Control Factory in this case has a cleanup functionality. So I'm not sure how many of these are here. I can't hold any more of those. So the cleanup functionality in this case is to my advantage because it's it was cleaning up after my mess. I'm not sure why I'm having so much trouble saying that. So I made a mess and it cleaned it up. So that's one of the neat functionalities of the build and repair. Sorry, the Nanite Control Factory is that it can clean up messes, and it can even do that when you're mining. So there's definitely a lot of really neat stuff. Okay, so let's try this again. So in, out, in, out. So I'm going to put this way. We're going to put the little, the neat little dish there. So everything that comes in, so this kind of acts like a sorter. Interior plate. So rather than steel plate, I need interior plate to make this work. So inventory, component, so we'll throw that in there, and we need interior plate. Okay, so 9 wireless cargo, out, in. So the out is now connected onto that conveyor. We need the other half of this, which is the pad, and I'm gonna go ahead and so my frustration here is that you can't, so it appears to be a blank bottom. So I think it just sits somewhere. So I'm gonna do it that way. Oh, and I need steel plate for that one. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so inventory, comp, and steel plate. Steel plate. Alright, and that one appears to have already built, so okay. We're going to, oh, that's battery. Weak. We called this translocator pad base, and we're going to call this translocator container base. I'm gonna cheat. Base, and we are coming from the miner. So tether container miner and translocator base. I don't know if we need a space or not a space, whether a space is a delimiter or not. Minor. Alright, so owned by me, share with faction, drain all. Now we should have something similar here. K, minor, and minor, drain all. Now, I can't move material this way, so that's upside and downside to this thing is that, you know, clearly we have issues relative. So one of the things that would actually kind of be nice is to maybe put the connector here. The downside to that is it would add, so obviously this connector is 2 blocks wide, so it would add 2 blocks on the bottom here, which I didn't want to do, so for what that's worth. Alright, so, okay, it's an out, right? So inventory, that's the minor, so there's nothing in it. That's the base with nothing in it. So the reason, so this conveyor connects onto the container, which I don't think we can actually see it. Yeah, we can see it right there. So there's a container here, there's a container here. The reactor is on that container. So if we go right here, we have a conveyor that's right here, which connects into a small container, which connects into another small container. The reason I put these here was specifically for adding in the ability to transmit cargo. So what I'm gonna do is actually put this guy on here. So that's an out, that's an in. So in this case, I'm gonna set this on top of this battery. Nah, I'll put it there. So just because we'll have that neat little dish up. So that's the in. So the other thing we need to build is we need cargo block and this, which will be like this, so it will pull out of this container and go into this block. Then I'm going to put it on the front here just because. And caution. And put that there. And obviously, as those things build, then they'll build over time. So build and repair versus nanite control factory. Advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, one nanite control factory is hideously expensive. By the time you put all the upgrades on it and everything, you can. It's very capable, but it is hideously expensive. The plus side is that you have a 300-meter radius, which is to say 300 meters in any direction from that gizmo. You can do anything you need to do, clean up, medical, whatever. Now there are some varying distances there, but construction and deconstruction have a limit of 300 meters. 300 meters gives you an incredible amount of flexibility when it comes to the nanite control factory. Build and repair system is limited to 75 meters in any direction. So there's also that aspect. Technically it's a block, so it's a square rather than a radius. So 75 meters in every direction. So this particular vessel would not be a problem if we look. So let's use the antenna there is 50 meters. So 50 meters for build and repair system would not be a problem. So you could build this guy very easily, especially if you tagged into the center. All right, let's see what we need here. So we're out of ore. We're out of iron. So we'll get into this guy again. So we're gonna unlock power away. We're going to turn on our floods. We're going to turn on our antenna, and in this case, we're going to hope for the best and turn on the little mechanism there. So I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to change orientations. Hopefully, not bang into anything. Then I'm going to go into the forward view here. Let's go cattywampus here, and drills there for a second. We're going to orbit back around. If you remember, one of the things I wanted to do is come in sideways and actually take out most of this stuff. So let's go ahead and reorient sideways so I can actually see what I'm doing here. We're going to come in close. So I've plowed out quite a big range there in the front. And again, what I don't want to do is get the drills in too close, because drills can and do cause damage to things that you wouldn't want to cause damage to. So I'm gonna get as far away. All right, so I'm gonna go straight in here, and then I'm gonna back out and actually do all of this again. So we're gonna go right up to the proverbial planar line here. There we go, and then back out. We're gonna go ahead and do a 4 just to be sure that we're maintaining plane. Right, shift to forward view again. A little bit dangerous from the perspective of might not be back far enough. Yeah, we weren't. All right, so round 2. All right, we'll go into inventory and we'll play this this little game again. So we have this, but it's clearly not going anywhere. So I don't know why that is. Yeah, I truly don't know. So iron, we're going to fill that all the way. We're going to fill the cockpit all the way, and then we have this thing which is already full. The connector is already full. So the idea here is that we'll get the maximum load possible just by shifting a lot of materials around. Semi-flat plane here. There we go. All right, and shifting sideways. So this is going to be a little bit silly, but well, maybe not. Maybe we won't do that. Maybe we'll. Oh. Maybe we'll do this a little more intelligently here. So what my pledge to you all out there who are watching, I will research, which may even include setting up a world with this mod in it, which is to say the cargo, the transmit mod, like what's in this world, and we'll see if that helps me in figuring out how the hell to make this work. So it is entirely possible that it is just broken. The Space Engineers does that. As the developers, make changes to the API, there's a lot of things over time which have broken, which is very frustrating to mod creators. My own mod has broken several times, and I've had to go back in and fix it. Oh. So, drills off. I really truly do not like where the connector is for this, but I don't have a better place. Let's see what we got down here. Wow, so that was the problem with the okay, so there's a assembler over here which is taking up that entire space, which is fine. Definitely making a big hole. So the only thing left is to come across this backside and make more holes. All right. So having said that, let me climb back into the miner here. We're going to use our reverse camera to get ourselves out of the influence here. We're going to rotate just for sake of rotate. I'm going to do a T and a V because because I really can't see. We're going to rotate sideways. That's closer than it appears. Continue sideways. All right. More or less lined up. And then, we'll use that. Oh, darn. So hopefully that will kind of somewhat give me a target here, using the little indicator light. Whee! Alright, 7 off, 9 off, 5 locked. And pulled everything in. Alright, whoops, that was down there. So the nice thing, the nice thing about the blast furnaces, so a refinery can refine anything, right? Pretty straightforward, you know, Space Engineers 101. The blast furnaces can only refine iron, nickel, and cobalt, but they do it really fast. So if the refineries are a relative 1, then the blast furnaces are about a 3. Okay, so it's not, oh my god, but it is significantly faster. So that kind of makes it nice. So I am guessing here that this may not be the case, but when I was guessing here, and we'll see if anything moves. Yeah, I see the power cell. 13. Yeah, so things are moving, they're just moving slowly. Thrusters. So one of the problems with thrusters here, and we may actually run into some problems, platinum. We still do have a lot of platinum ore though. So this thing has a lot of thrusters, and it's really all about thruster components. It also has a lot of batteries, so batteries are a thing. So these are built. Now I can possibly configure those guys. So let me get in here. So we called this the translocator pad, and we're gonna call this the B miner for big miner, or maybe we should do it the L miner for large miner. Cargo transmit is a throw over from the other cargo transmitter. Alright, so this is going to get renamed to container large miner, and we're going to take these C and use them here. So large miner, we're going to transmit to the base, and this is called the L miner. All right, take another snapshot. Okay, we're straying into that 3-hour mark. So I think I will go ahead and sign off here and do my research. So that is my pledge to you. I will do research and figure out if I can make these things operate or not, and really figure out how they work. So that's going to be the interesting thing for me, is really just to figure out, do we have a server issue, do we have a mod issue, or do we have a configuration issue, which is really to say Kenty is an idiot, which is entirely possible too. So those are the three options at this point. So I will do that research off screen so I don't bore you to death with my testing, and we'll go from there. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.